I keep forgetting things. Am I losing my memory? And the shocking truth behind an ordinary morning. Why did I walk into this room and forget why I came in? My grandkid's name, the one I call every day. I just blanked out. Lately I've felt foggy, but the doctor said I'm fine? Am I losing my mind? If you or someone you love has ever asked these questions, then maybe your brain is speaking up, not because of illness but because it's starving. And what your brain is lacking isn't expensive supplements, but something incredibly common, something millions forget every morning. We often fear the big diseases, but overlook the small deficiencies. Yet it's those tiny things that can silently push the brain to a dead end without anyone noticing. I'm a geriatric doctor with over 20 years of experience in the US. I've lost count of how many patients have come to me with one simple line: "I've been forgetting things lately." What do you think, doctor? And in their minds the answer they fear most is always Alzheimer's, memory loss, brain aging. But then there are days when I sit quietly, staring at the test results. Because what I see isn't what they feared. It's actually more dangerous because it's silent. And then there are mornings that make me pause in the clinic, just because of one seemingly harmless question. Let me tell you about one morning. A man walked into the clinic, looked healthy, spoke clearly. Then he sat down, picked up the coffee cup in front of him, and paused. "What was I just about to do?" he said. That one question silenced the entire room. And what shocked me wasn't the forgetting itself, but what was hiding behind it. I thought it was the start of irreversible memory decline. But I was wrong. His brain wasn't dying, it was starving. And it was missing just one thing: vitamin B12, something most people over 60 never pay attention to. That's when I began asking a question no one wants to face: how many people are slipping into brain decline because of something too small to notice? You might be eating well, taking multivitamins, feeling healthy. But if you don't know how vital B12 is to memory, if you don't know your brain absorbs less of it as you age, then you're living with a ticking time bomb in your head without even realizing it. And maybe you've felt that dizzy moment too when you forgot something that should never be forgotten. And what shocked me most was that just weeks after adding B12 in the morning, that same man who once got lost in his familiar grocery store played again the song he wrote for his wife 40 years ago. His memory wasn't lost. It was just waiting to be refueled the right way. And this video is so you don't lose one more memory. We begin with that small capsule right now. Because the story doesn't end here. The first signs often appear quietly, and they're easily mistaken for just normal aging. But soon you'll see they're anything but normal. The first sign: a crack in the mirror of memory. I met him again a few weeks after the first visit. Same face. Still polite, calm, only his eyes showed something like quiet fear. He said, "I got lost in the same supermarket I've been going to for 15 years. I stood in the aisle, staring at a familiar cereal box, and couldn't remember what I needed. My heart raced, like someone turned the lights off in my head. I listened in silence. Not because the story was new, but because it was exactly like hundreds of stories I've heard from people over 60. The same kind of misfire, the same disoriented feeling that even the person experiencing it couldn't name. And this is what I want you to truly remember: memory decline doesn't begin with full-on forgetfulness. It begins with small cracks, like a mirror with a light fracture in the corner. You can still see yourself in the mirror. But at times, the reflection blurs, tilts, warps. Then one day, you don't realize the mirror is nearly shattered. The brain is the same. Those small lapses, mixing up someone's name, freezing for a moment in the market, they're not just normal aging. They can be early signals of the power being pulled from within. He added, "I sat down at my desk, opened my notebook, and forgot what I was going to write. The words just vanished like smoke. I asked, "Are you sleeping enough?" He nodded. "Exercise?" He said yes. "Eating normally?" He answered, "I eat like I always have." That's what puzzled me. And I decided to run a blood test that same day. And you know what? His vitamin B12 level was so low his body kept running, but his brain was already in a fog. I remember staring at the number. Not out of shock, but because so many others are in the exact same state and have no idea. Have you ever forgotten the name of someone you know well? Walked into the kitchen and forgot what you were cooking? Heard someone say something, then minutes later couldn't recall it? I'm asking not to make you anxious, but to help you take your brain seriously right now. Because those things aren't just getting older and forgetting. They might be small cracks in the mirror of memory, and if you don't act early, that mirror may break. And while that mirror is still whole, I want you to begin something new, just a small act, but one that could preserve every memory in your life. This story continues with one small morning habit that keeps your brain from ever blacking out again. And the strange part is, most people think they're doing the right thing. But in truth, they're missing the one thing that matters most. Not old age, it's a missing piece of the brain. What shocked me when I saw his test result was that his B12 level was lower than the minimum for stable brain function. Not just slightly low. His brain was running on an empty reserve. Like a car trying to squeeze out the last few miles even though the fuel gauge is at zero. And then I realized, this wasn't a sign of aging. Not old age. Not Alzheimer's. But something completely different, a deficiency in neuronal energy due to a lack of vitamin B12. That explained why he was healthy, eating well, not stressed, no chronic illness. Yet his mind was foggy, memory unstable, reflexes slow, and emotions uneasy. What is vitamin B12? It's one of the essential vitamins for maintaining the myelin sheath around nerves, like insulation around wires, creating energy for brain cells to function, supporting the production of neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine. Without B12, your brain still flips the switch, but there's not enough current to light up. And the worst part is, you don't notice it right away. Because it doesn't hit like a shock. It quietly pulls, wire by wire, from your nervous system in silence. Young people can lack B12 and still recover. But after 60, B12 absorption from food drops significantly because the stomach produces less acid. Many take antacids long term. They eat less meat, less animal protein. Undiagnosed chronic digestive issues. The result, even if you eat enough, you're still deficient. Even if you're healthy, you're still confused. He once said something that haunted me. I thought I was just aging normally. Until I couldn't recognize my daughter's voice on the phone. That was when I realized, we've gotten so used to blaming age, that we miss the brain's first warnings simply because they don't hurt. Have you been feeling, suddenly forgetting simple things? Losing focus while reading or talking? Faces seem familiar but names escape you. Quick to irritate or feeling low without knowing why? Pause. You're not getting weaker. Your brain is quietly asking for something it can no longer make on its own. And the question now isn't, am I just getting old? But rather, have I been feeding my brain the right way? The answer might begin very simply. No special medications. No need to wait until memory is gone. Just one small action at the right moment can reverse the decline. That's why I want you to know what we did after discovering his B12 deficiency. And that small thing brought him back to memories he thought were lost. We'll begin right here, a morning habit, simple, easy, but one that can reignite a brain fading a little more each day. Morning ritual: one small pill, one big shift. The next morning, I called him back. I said, tomorrow, don't start with coffee. Don't start with the news. Start with one small pill. 1 vitamin B12. And take it as if you're drinking back your own memory. He paused for a few seconds. Then laughed. You think one little pill can make a difference, doctor? I said, it's not just a pill. It's a message. Your brain still wants to live. It's just waiting for the right signal to rise again. Why in the morning? Because morning is when cortisol, the wake-up hormone, peaks. It's when the brain is most ready to receive new signals. If you provide B12 at this time, absorption is far better than in the afternoon or evening. Like watering a seedling at dawn instead of when the sun has already set. How to take it right? I gave him 3 rules. Sublingual form, because after 60, the stomach absorbs B12 poorly. Sublingual allows it to enter the bloodstream directly under the tongue. Take it 15 minutes before breakfast on an empty stomach, absorption is higher. Choose B12 in the form of methylcobalamin, it's the bioactive form, easier to absorb than cyanocobalamin in older adults. 3 days later, he called back. His voice sounded different. Not exactly happy, but clearer. More alert. He said, today I remembered to bring my glasses to the store. I remembered to call my wife on time. And I remembered the name of my old driver after not seeing him for 2 years. I asked, do you think it's thanks to that little pill? He replied, I'm not sure. But I know one thing, I did something for my brain. And my brain responded. It may sound small. But to me, it was a turning point. Like a winter in the brain starting to thaw, each drop of light returning. You don't have to wait until you forget the way home. You don't have to wait until your loved ones remind you of your name every morning. If every day, you start with one small pill taken the right way, you're not just protecting memory. You're preserving your very self. I didn't write this to sell you a pill. I wrote it for you, someone living in a 60-plus body, but never clearly told how to protect your brain in a simple, humane, and doable way starting tomorrow morning. And I wrote it for your memories, those precious things that one small morning habit can hold on to. But there's one thing I haven't told you. Taking vitamin B12 the wrong way or at the wrong time may result in no absorption at all. And there's a group of people even with regular intake who see no improvement. So if we've done everything right, nurtured each breakfast like tending a seedling, yet memory still slips, blank spaces still appear, perhaps it's time we look more closely at the image of the brain itself. The reflection in the mirror, brains aging before their time. One afternoon, I stood in the MRI room, looking at the screen. It was the brain image of a 63-year-old man still working, still golfing every weekend. He spoke fluently, told jokes with charm. No one would suspect there was anything unusual going on in his head. But that image didn't lie. The hippocampus, the memory center, had already begun to shrink. A slow, silent thinning. Like a leaf fading along its veins, even while still green on the surface. I call that a brain aging before its time. Because the body still functions. But memory, focus, processing speed, have started to drift from their original rhythm. Strangely, among all the people I've seen, many were like this, seemingly healthy, yet with early signs of cognitive decline. And the common trait? They didn't feel anything unusual. Just a bit forgetful, easily distracted, can't quite recall what I just read. Little things so small even family didn't notice. Only when I showed them their own brain images their faces went still. Not out of fear, but surprise. I didn't think I could have this. I've been doing just fine. That's why I keep talking about B12. Because a long-standing B12 deficiency can silently contribute to hippocampal shrinkage. And what troubles me most, many patients come to me when it's already late. When their hippocampus has thinned by more than 30% compared to others their age. When remembering grandchildren's names takes effort, not instinct. At that point, They don't need me to teach them how to live well. They need one thing: to hold on to memories that are slowly slipping away. If you've ever placed your keys in the fridge and couldn't recall why, called your child the wrong name after waking up, or walked into a room and forgot what you came for, don't brush it off as normal aging. See it as the brain's first whisper. Because when those whispers go ignored, they grow into voids. Voids no pill can fill once it's too late. But I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you because you still have a chance. One small habit, done every morning, can be the lever to bring your brain back in sync. Let me show you how to create that lever from something you can start tomorrow morning. Morning habit: reviving the memory center. I once had a patient, Mr. Wallace, 68 years old, living in Vermont. He didn't come to me because of any severe symptoms. It was just, sometimes he felt like there was a fog in his head, as if part of him hadn't quite woken up with the rest. "Doctor, I'm not sleepy, but I don't feel clear-headed. Every morning I sit still for a long time without remembering what I need to do first." I didn't ask what medication he was taking, nor whether he ate breakfast. I asked him only one thing: after you open your eyes, what's the first thing you do? He laughed. "I lie there for a bit. Then sit up. Then sit still a bit more. Then go wash my face." I nodded. And I started to draw him a new map, a map to help awaken the just woken hippocampus. You know, after a long night, the brain doesn't just need oxygen, it needs movement signals to trigger circulation. Like an old faucet, you have to gently turn it to get the water flowing. You need that first push to get the blood moving back to the brain. I gave Mr. Wallace a simple routine. Step 1, after waking, drink a 200 milliliters glass of warm water, not cold, nothing added. Just warm water to thin the blood and help circulation start up more easily. It's like the first touch to the heart and brain vessels. Step 2, sit up slowly, place both feet on the floor, and gently raise your heels up and down 10 times, like a soft bounce. You don't need to stand, just activate the leg muscles, where 70% of your blood vessels are. When you lift your heels, you push blood back to the heart and from there to the brain. Step 3, take 5 deep breaths. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 6 seconds. This is a way to massage the parasympathetic nervous system, helping the brain wake up without coffee. These 3 actions take less than 3 minutes. But in over 20 years working in the US, I've seen that those who maintain this habit every morning show clear improvements in clarity. And Mr. Wallace? After 2 weeks, he emailed me, "Doctor, I no longer feel like I'm floating through my mornings. I feel like I'm back. No medication. No cost. Just the right signal at the right time in the right way to awaken the brain's blood vessels." And if you're taking B12 in the morning, pair that pill after finishing the above 3 steps, with a breakfast that includes light protein, no acid, and a bit of healthy fat. That's the key you've just created to reopen the memory center each day. But I understand. Some of you might still wonder, I've done everything, eaten right, taken B12 properly, moved in the morning. So why does my memory still feel like it's shrouded in a haze? The answer may lie elsewhere, in the brain's internal connections, and in something few people pay attention to: emotion. Brain connection. Emotion is the thread of memory. I want to tell you about a very special woman. Her name is Jane, 72 years old, living on the west coast of the US. She had no history of Alzheimer's, no diabetes, no high blood pressure. She even ate very healthily, practiced yoga 3 times a week, and had taken B12 regularly for 5 years. But she told me, "Doctor, I can't remember what I had for dinner last night." She looked straight into my eyes, and continued, "But I remember clearly the last time my mother held my hand, when I was 10. That sentence left me speechless. Because I knew I was about to touch a truth deeper than vitamins, food, or exercise. A truth that neuroscience has proven but few people talk about. Memory is not stored by logic. Memory is stored by emotion. Your brain, specifically the hippocampus, doesn't select information based on importance. It selects based on the emotional connection tied to that moment. And whenever you laugh wholeheartedly, shed real tears, or feel your heart race from emotion, a neurotransmitter called norepinephrine is released. This chemical acts like a stamp on the memory, helping it embed more deeply in the brain. That's why what you learn, read, hear, if it lacks emotion, will pass through the hippocampus like a fleeting breeze. But the memories you've truly lived will be etched like carvings in stone. I asked Jane, "How long have you been living alone?" She replied, 7 years, since my husband passed away. I stayed quiet for a moment, then gently suggested, "Each day, you could call an old friend. Or listen to a song that brings back a beautiful memory. Or write down a memory from your youth, along with how you felt at that time." That wasn't just random advice. Because I've seen hundreds of patients significantly improve their memory thanks to one single thing: activating emotion alongside behavior. When you do a brain exercise, connect it to a joyful memory. When you have breakfast with B12, play a song that reminds you of a loved one. When you take deep breaths each morning, quietly repeat a wish from an old friend. Emotion is not excess. It's the red thread that connects neurons, turning information into real memory. And you know what's magical? Those emotional activities create new neural connections, a process called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself. Meaning, your brain can relearn, remember, and relive regardless of age. As long as you reach the right layer of memory, emotion. But I understand. There are still days when you feel nothing at all. Not sad, not happy, not connected. Just a day that drifts by in gray silence. And that's exactly when your brain needs a new key, a small action, repeated over time, long enough to rewrite those fading memory paths. We'll open that door together in the next part. Small action repeated in the right way, memory will return. I remember very clearly Mr. Dennis, a 68-year-old patient living in Colorado. He used to be an engineer, very skilled at remembering numbers and formulas. But one day, he told me, I read a paragraph in the newspaper, but 2 minutes later I forgot what I just read. He didn't have Alzheimer's. His brain MRI was normal. He still took B12 every morning, ate well, exercised regularly. But short-term memory, the kind that helps us hold temporary information, seemed to be quietly fading. I didn't give him more medication. I simply handed him a piece of paper with 2 questions. What do you remember from yesterday? What do you want to remember today? I told him, every morning, write down your 2 answers. It only takes 2 minutes. Mr. Dennis smiled. That's it? But the miracle started happening after 14 days. He came back and said, I don't feel like my mind is empty in the morning anymore. Then he shared a little story about his grandson, a line from a movie, and the gas money he spent last week. That may not sound like much. But for someone who fears they're slowly disappearing from everyday details, those memories are like the pillars that hold up the self. I want you to understand, it's not big actions that change the brain. It's small actions repeated the right way at the right time to the right depth of the brain. I call this active recall, actively recording memory before it slips away. It costs nothing. Requires no skills. Just 2 minutes each morning. Why the morning? Because it's when your brain is refreshed after deep sleep, and the hippocampus is ready to receive, consolidate, and sort information. If you write down a memory or something you want to remember, it gets a storage stamp right then and there. Gradually, your brain will learn to categorize memories instead of letting them drift away randomly. And that's when memory returns. Not loudly. Not magically. But clearly, day by day. I've seen many older adults do this, write a 1-line morning journal. Jot down something they want to tell a loved one by day's end. Or simply, repeat the name of the person they just spoke to. These are memory anchors, like placing buoys in rough seas. If you feel like your memory is lagging bit by bit, try this small action. Repeat it for 14 days. Expect nothing. Then look back. What do you still remember, and what have you forgotten? You might be surprised. Not because you remember more, but because you start to feel you can hold on to what truly matters. I know you might be thinking, all of this B12, breakfast, emotion, behavior, is it really enough to help me hold on to myself? That question is the whisper of hope. And I want to end this video with something you deserve to hear. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're just waiting for the right signal to light up again. We'll walk together toward that moment where memory is not just data, but a part of who you are. You're not broken, you're just waiting for the right signal. I used to think that once memory was lost, it could never be regained. But after 2 decades of working with thousands of patients across the US, I've come to a deeper realization: memories don't disappear. They're just waiting to be called by their right name. Like Mr. Harold, 72 years old, from Oregon, who used to confuse his bedroom and kitchen every morning. But after changing how he took B12, writing 1 sentence each morning about what he wanted to hold on to, and eating breakfast properly the way I shared in this video, he remembered the name of his best friend from high school. And for the first time in years, he picked up the phone and called him. I still remember the tremble in his voice. I didn't think I could remember anyone again. But today, I did. You see, we're not broken. Our brains just need to be reminded how to work right, under the right conditions. You don't need to take dozens of supplements. You don't need to chase miracle memory recovery ads. You just need a steady, clear path and someone who truly understands you walking beside you. Where to start? With 1 B12 tablet taken at the right time. A breakfast with enough protein, healthy fats, and low acidity. A 2-minute memory recall action each morning. And a quiet belief that you are still here. Because memory isn't for working. It's for connecting. With family. With loved ones. With yourself. And you deserve to keep those connections. You deserve a brain that still functions well even after 60. If what I shared today means something to you, try it for 7 days and come back here to share what you discover. Because who knows, your story might become a light for someone else lost in the fog of memory. If you found this video helpful, please like it, share what resonated with you in the comments, and send it to someone over 60, someone who might be waiting for the right signal for their memory. And don't forget to follow Thrive 60 Plus so every week, I can bring you more simple guidance to help your brain feel clearer and your life become more vivid each day. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm a brain specialist, and I believe this: when you truly understand your body, you can live healthy, clear, and whole at any age.